Washington Journal continues.
Joining us now to talk about the U.S. sale of F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia is Bradley Bowman. He is at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. He's the Senior Director for the Center on Military and Political Power there. Brad, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much.
The Crown Prince was in Washington, D.C., meeting with the President. What was he looking for?
You know, thank you again for the opportunity to join you. The Crown Prince came to Washington with a wish list, and darn near the top of that wish list was the ability to acquire up to 48 of the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. For those of your viewers and listeners who don't do this on a regular basis, that is our nation's most advanced fighter jet, one of the most advanced in the world. It is currently employed by the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Air Force, and the U.S. Marine Corps. U.S. service members will be flying this aircraft in combat for decades to come, and roughly 19 other nations either already have the aircraft or are procuring it. So it's very, very important that we protect the technology associated with that aircraft so that our service members can accomplish the missions they're given and return home to their families.
Why does Saudi Arabia want these? Because they've got F-15s. Is that not enough?
It's a great question. Saudi Arabia has a very impressive existing fleet. They have European aircraft. They have American F-15s. They have some of the most advanced F-15s in the world. You're correct, they have a very impressive fleet. But the F-35 is much more advanced than what they already have. So if they were to acquire the F-35, it would significantly increase the capabilities of the Saudi Air Force. What would it provide? Just at a summary level, the F-35 is what we call a fifth-generation fighter. The Saudis don't have any fifth-generation fighters. What distinguishes a fifth-generation fighter? A fifth-generation fighter is harder for radar to detect. It's harder for our enemies to see it. And if you can't see it or it's difficult to see it, you have a harder time shooting it down, obviously. It also has incredible sensors and incredible networking capabilities. And so if you combine the F-35 with their F-15s they already have, that's a formidable combination. And you don't have to take my word for it. If you look at the 12-day war, the Israeli Air Force did just that. They combined F-15s and F-35s. The F-15s can carry a lot more munitions. The F-35s, as I said, are harder to detect. They can go in deeper where there's advanced enemy air defenses, and that combination is very formidable. So Saudi Arabia would be the first country in the Middle East, other than Israel, to get this F-35, and that's one of the reasons why there are concerns about Israel's qualitative military edge, which is required by U.S. law.
Which we will talk about,
Sure.
But I wanted to stick with why the Saudis would need this. In other words, who are their adversaries that they are building this fleet against?
It's a good question. The Saudis, like many governments, want weapon systems for a variety of reasons. But the number one threat from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the Islamic Republic of Iran. This goes back many, many decades to 1979 when you had the Iranian Revolution. They are adversaries. They have made they had some sort of cold peace a few years ago, if you will. But they see Iran with a clear-eyed view, as should most Americans. Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism, is the leading source of instability in the Middle East. And Saudi Arabia wants an aircraft and an air force that can deter and defeat aggression from the Islamic Republic of Iran and some of its terror proxies, including the Houthis in Yemen.
Let's hear from the President. He was in the Oval Office. He was asked about the F-35s and if it's the same that are being sold to Israel.
When you look at the F-35 and you're asking me, is it the same? I think it's going to be pretty similar, yeah. You know,
how will that
this is a great ally, and Israel's a great ally. And I know they'd like you to get planes of reduced caliber. I don't think that makes you too happy. They've been a great ally. Israel's been a great ally. And we're looking at that exactly right now. But as far as I'm concerned, I think they are both at a level where they should get top of the line. Yes, please.
Now, explain what you were talking about as far as comparative advantage or qualitative advantage.
Yeah, there's something called qualitative military edge, and this is not someone's opinion or something that I'm making up. This is the U.S. law. So Section 36H of the Arms Export Control Act, also 22 U.S. Code 2776, viewers can look it up, requires the United States to maintain Israel's qualitative military edge. This is a relative comparison. Some would say, well, you know, why would we be concerned about Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia is not going to attack Israel anytime soon. I think that's probably right, but it's irrelevant. The law makes no distinction between regarding the recipient nation's political disposition or its policy. It focuses on military hardware. And I think that's wise, because if you look at history in Middle East politics, governments can change quickly and policies can change quickly. So you focus on military hardware. And there is no way you can give Saudi Arabia America's most advanced fighter jet and not erode Israel's qualitative military edge. That doesn't mean necessarily you don't give it to Saudi Arabia, but you would have to take additional steps to maintain Israel's relative qualitative military edge according to the law.
Which means more F-35s?
It could. They have a lot already. It could mean other things. This isn't about the aircraft. It's about the capabilities. So it could be air defense systems. It could be other things. It's the ability of Israel to defend itself as the law states, not just against one state, a coalition of states. That's explicit in the law. It's focused on the Middle East, the statute is, but we have to look at Turkey, for example. You know, Turkey has had very problematic policies toward Israel. President Erdogan met with members of Hamas after October 7th. When Israel brought justice to leaders of Hamas, he lowered the flags to half-staff in Israel, mourning the loss of this terrorist.
In Turkey.
Turkey did this at their diplomatic facility in Israel. I mean, quite a message to Israel, mourning the death of a Hamas leader. And they're taking some concerning actions in Syria, for example. So the law requires us to not just look at one country, look at a coalition of countries. Yes, the law is focused on Middle East, but Americans who understand the value of Israel to our interests and want to follow the law have to be paying attention to these things.
If you'd like to join the conversation, if you've got a question for Bradley Bowman of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, start calling in now. Democrats are on 202-748-8000, Republicans 202-748-8001, and Independents 202-748-8002. You wrote a piece with the headline, "What Washington Should Demand from Riyadh Before Providing the F-35s." What should those demands be?
Yeah, no, there's three. We just talked about QME. I think we should follow the law and maintain Israel's qualitative military edge. We also need to ask Riyadh some tough questions about China. I started with the point is my number one focus here is making sure that our number one adversary doesn't get technology related to our F-35 that will allow them to shoot down our aircraft and kill our pilots. I mean, it's that simple. Anyone from Saudi Arabia listening to say, "Oh, come on, what are you talking about? We have advanced technology already. We protect it. We're good. It's good. Don't worry about it." Okay, well, Riyadh, why did you conduct naval exercises with China in October?
Which would give them valuable intelligence.
Maybe. I mean, but why would someone who wants the F-35 be doing military exercises with China? I don't understand that.
Why would they?
They're trying to have it both ways a little bit, I think. If we're being
they're hedging their bets.
They're hedging their bets a little bit. Now, they say, America, no one can replace you. Your weapons are best. No one has the political will and military capability. Don't worry about it. We're just going to do a little over here. We just want the economics. We just want the investment. Okay, then why are you doing a naval exercise? And then why is the Saudi press agency issuing a statement that reads, look it up, the goal of the exercise was to strengthen military cooperation between the two sides and exchange expertise to raise combat readiness. That's Saudi Arabia talking about an exercise with China. Hello? Really? And you want the F-35? And also, according to New York Times reporting, on November 13th, Pentagon officials are expressing concerns that via Chinese espionage or via Chinese security partnership, which I just started to describe, that they could require some of these technologies. And there's also in that same report a discussion how China and Saudi Arabia have worked together on Saudi Arabia's ballistic missile program. So, I think it's reasonable for Americans to say, you want our best fighter? Okay. Hey, Saudi Arabia, you're an important security partner. You're a flawed partner, but you're an important security partner. We have common interests. We have a common adversary. We want you to be capable. We want to work toward a regional security architecture. That means you need to have advanced capabilities. But there's some reasonable things we should expect. And one of them is you don't do military exercises with China. Thank you very much.
Do we have any assurance that even came up with the Crown Prince?
I don't. And honestly, I wish President Trump had mentioned a few things in the Oval Office, and I think there's a missed opportunity. And that gets to, I just talked about the second, that gets to my third point. I think it would be a mistake. I think it was a mistake for President Trump to not mention the Oval Office. Hey, I've decided to sell the F-35. Obviously, that has to go through a congressional approval process we could talk about. But let me be very clear, Your Majesty, Crown Prince, the first F-35 will not be delivered until you normalize relations with Israel. We will.
That's a big ask, Brad.
That's a big ask. That's a huge ask. I recognize it. And that came up in the meeting, as you know. And he has concerns about Gaza. Trump's trying with his 20-point plan. Hamas has refused to disarm. I'm not saying the F-35 is going to provide pivotal leverage, but Trump, the deal maker, just forfeited a whole lot of leverage by simply not saying that. We're willing to give you the aircraft. We've got to follow the law. We got to talk about what you're doing with China. And let's be clear, you're not going to get the first F-35 until you normalize with Israel. And by the way, that's going to take several years. If you look at the backlog in F-35s, and if you look at the nations already in the queue, unless they're going to bump Saudi Arabia up the queue, these aircraft aren't going to be delivered for several years. So I agree with you. It's a big ask. But, we're not talking about next month. We're talking about several years from now. So, but by not saying that, the president, the deal maker, forfeited leverage.
Let's talk to Marty in Louisville, Kentucky, Democrat. Good morning, Marty.
Good morning, Mimi. I'm using my nickname now. Mr. Bowman, sir, I called in once before when you were on this show. I'd like to make a quick comment about Saudi Arabia and also one about Israel, and then I'll listen to your response. Saudi Arabia is a very large country that's owned by a few rich families, and the United States has made it a point to keep those families in power so we can use that space for our air bases and keep another government from taking over and getting control of those airfields. But you might want to think of changing the name of your organization to Defense for Democracies and also Saudi Arabia. Now, switching to Israel, Netanyahu said from the beginning, we are going to destroy Hamas. That's what this operation will do. And he kept saying for 2 years, we are not going to stop this operation until we destroy Hamas. And they did not destroy Hamas. In the meantime, they've killed in excess of about 50,000 Palestinians. Let me know if you disagree with that figure, and destroyed almost all the property in that country. And I'm failing to see how anybody in their right mind could say that was a successful operation when they did not destroy, they did not achieve their objective. They killed all those people. And the bottom line is the problem is the hatred that Muslims and Palestinians have toward the Jews. I'm finding it hard to believe anybody would think that hatred is going to go away because Israel killed 50,000 Palestinians. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you for the call. You raised many important issues there. You're right, the Saud family, hence the name Saudi Arabia. Going back to FDR, we have a long relationship with the regime there that is based around that family and their descendants. Our research institute does not take any money from foreign governments as a matter of pride and principle. So let me say that. I said in the days and weeks after October 7th, after that horrific attack, the worst single-day murder of Jews since the Holocaust, that it was going to be easier said than done to destroy Hamas. Unfortunately, I was right. Hamas still refuses to disarm. As I said earlier, they're not going to be like the British at Yorktown and file out and put their weapons in neat piles. Someone's going to have to go and do that. There's a tension here between the worthy goal of trying to get Saudi Arabia and Israel to normalize, which would be good for America, good for Israel, good for Saudi Arabia, good for the region, and a nightmare for the Islamic Republic of Iran, which was why I love it. There's a tension between that goal of normalization and making progress in Gaza, and as the Crown Prince said in the Oval Office yesterday, a path, I think is the word he said, toward a two-state solution. Of course, many Israelis don't look favorably on a two-state solution after October 7th, and it's less politically popular now, but there is a tension between what Saudi Arabia wants in Gaza and normalization, no doubt about it. But this is what the Trump administration is trying to work on.
Rosemary in New Jersey, Independent Line, you're on with Brad Bowman.
Okay, Rosemary, did you say?
Yes, you're on. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just wondering, why are we selling Israel F-35s when they turned around and sold them to China, and yet now you're saying Saudi Arabia can't do the same? You're worried about Saudi Arabia. That was my question.
Sure. Thanks for the call. Unfortunately, ma'am, the premise of your question is false. Israel is our best, most capable, most reliable ally in the Middle East, and they have not sold the F-35 to China. So I think.
Where did you get that, Rosemary?
I believe they were. They were caught selling F-16s to China. That I know.
F-16s?
Anyway,
did they sell anything?
Unfortunately, that's incorrect as well, ma'am. When the United States government sells a major weapon system to a foreign country, there are laws and regulations associated with that about what that country can do with it in terms of protecting any sort of further sales. And it is inaccurate to say that Israel has sold F-35 or F-16 to China. That obviously would be a problem, and it has not happened.
How much does an F-35 cost?
Yes, I knew you were going to ask that. There's different ways to measure cost. There is the flyaway cost, and there are program acquisition costs. So flyaway costs, this is from 2023 data, is somewhere between 62 and 77 million. So that's like buying a car, out the gate. Flyaway costs, I have a little bit more expensive than a Chevy, of course. And then you have program acquisition unit costs, which takes those flyaway costs and adds R&D, and it's roughly double that per aircraft. So these are not cheap. These are very expensive. And then you have sustainment costs, just like a car, right? Once you buy the car, you have to maintain it, and you have to take it to the shop. The same thing with the F-35. And according to April 2024 GAO report, it was 1.1 trillion in 2018. That increased to 1.6 trillion in 2023. And so, I'm talking about how advanced the F-35 is. Let's be clear. This program has had significant problems with cost overruns and delivery delays. Lockheed Martin delivered 110 of these aircraft in 2024. All were late by an average of 238 days, up from 61 average days in 2023. That according to a September 2025 GAO report. So amazing aircraft, helping to secure our country. 19 nations are participating. More countries, including Saudi Arabia, want it. And also significant delays and cost overruns that are a growing problem.
And why is there a backlog? I mean, why can't they be produced quicker?
There's a backlog, one, because a lot of people want it. There's a backlog because, and I worked in the U.S. Senate for 9 years, so I had a second row seat to a lot of these issues back in the day. We were trying to develop, test, and build this aircraft at the same time. That's kind of a formula for all kinds of problems if you're literally trying to produce something while you're still developing it. It also was incredibly ambitious, right? We were building an aircraft that was going to serve the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps, and have all these advanced technologies, stealth coding, stealth forms on these things, very complex. That's not to excuse Lockheed at all, but this is a challenging and ambitious program.
Sam in Washington, D.C., Independent Line. Hi, Sam, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning to you and your guest. I have a question for your guest. He draws such a rosy picture of Saudi Arabia. I don't know if the gentleman is old enough to know the 17 of the 19 hijackers from the Saudi Arabia for 9/11. And also, Mr. Khashoggi was basically butchered in the Saudi embassy in Istanbul. So, and then your guest has the audacity or selective ignorance to call Iran the problem maker. What it is, he needs to do his homework before he comes spew this nonsense. And I'm just so disappointed that you have this APAC lobbyists. They come and do
Sam, well, let's get a response. Go ahead.
Some strong words there, sir. I'd love to grab coffee with you and have a deeper chat if you wanted to. Let's get your facts right. It was 15 of 19 hijackers, not 17. So get your facts right before you start coming on a show like this, I would recommend. And I had a particular experience on 9/11, sir. I could tell you about that. I have no illusions about the horrors of that day. And so let's be clear on that. Rosie, I said flawed. Saudi Arabia is not a democracy, not even close. Serious human rights concerns there. Look up Freedom House. And Jamal Khashoggi was a journalist who was murdered. And according to some reports, they took a bone saw to him after they murdered him. Okay, how's that for candor? And you can also look up the 2023 report that I published in Saudi Arabia. They had a section on human rights. So, there's that. And I think, unfortunately, the comments in the Oval Office yesterday were a little bit disappointing. The reporter from ABC asked the president about that, and the president's response was, that referring to Jamal Khashoggi, he's controversial. Some people liked him, some people didn't like him. I think that was very disappointing.
And things happen.
And things happen. Thank you. That's really not what you want to hear the President of the United States say in the Oval Office. I would have preferred something like Jamal Khashoggi was murdered. He's a human being. That was wrong. And by the way, the U.S. intelligence community did say that the Crown Prince ordered that. He's denied that. Okay, so how's that for candor, sir? Thank you.
We've got a question for you from Joseph in Fayetteville, North Carolina, asking if you believe that the U.S. will give Israel advanced drone and artificial intelligence technology.
Yeah, so the United States and Israel have a deep military cooperation going back many years that is good for the United States and good for Israel. And we have the U.S.-Israel Operations Technology Working Group that has 6 sub-working groups that focuses on things like artificial intelligence, autonomy, directed energy, and the list goes on and on. We benefit from the Israelis' ability to go from requirement, hey, what do you need, to fielded combat capability. They benefit from our economy of scale. We benefit from each other's innovation. They might use that capability in Iran. We might use it in the Baltics or the Taiwan Strait. Doesn't matter. In many cases, it's the same technology, and we benefit in a big way from that cooperation with Israel.
Here is CJ in Virginia, line for Democrats. Good morning, CJ.
Hey, good morning to you both. Mr. Bowman, great conversation. I'd like your opinion on, the European, conglomerate, EADS, European Air Defense Systems. How do they play into your, analysis about what they can and should be doing in their own backyard more effectively, and what their products are like vis-a-vis the U.S.'s, in this case, F-35s? Because for me, the closer the problem is to Europe, I would hope the Europeans would have a solution that would keep us from shedding our blood. And thank you.
Yeah, I think the question there is essentially on burden sharing, if I heard it right. The way I think about it, and thanks for the thoughtful question, the way I think about it is America has interests around the world, and we have finite resources. So many of those interests we have to protect directly ourselves. Some of them we need the help of partners. And so, if you want to do less in the Middle East, then we need to empower our partners there so that we can defend common interests and counter common adversaries. And if you want those partners to do more alongside us, then they need to be empowered with arms sales. So some people get really fixated on this or that defense company's revenue. I really don't care about the defense company's revenue. I'm a proponent of American arms sales because it strengthens our defense industrial base. It strengthens our research and development. It shifts balances of power around the world in positive ways. It allows us to operate with our partners and allies more effectively. And it also sustains demand for our defense industrial base when Pentagon demand wanes, so that when Pentagon demand returns in a few years, those production lines, those supply networks are still there, so that we don't have to take the time and pay the money to restart them. And we've seen that, for example, with the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense system that Saudi Arabia is buying. U.S. Army demand kind of went down a little bit. Saudi Arabia is buying a lot. We've benefited from those Saudi purchases in a selfish way for Americans, and that's one of many reasons why, setting aside the revenue of some defense company, I'm a proponent of U.S. military arms sales.
I just want to ask you while you're here about the military buildup in the Caribbean. There's a carrier strike group. There are F-35s there. Do you think that that's there for deterrence, or is that a buildup for war with Venezuela?
Only the president knows, and I'm not sure he knows. It may change in an hour.
But what would that buildup imply to you?
This is the most extraordinary buildup of combat power in American combat power in Latin America in years, maybe decades. This is far more than you need to take out some drug boats or do 1 or 2 strikes. I mean, by far, this is a force that could conduct a major, comprehensive, weeks-long assault on Venezuela. So the president, at a minimum, is clearly trying to cast a shadow of power over the negotiating table as he deals with Maduro, and he may be preparing for strikes inside Venezuela, which, from a policy standpoint and potentially from a legal standpoint, is a whole other thing.
We've got a question for you on text about advancements in AI-controlled drones that would make even the cutting-edge technology in the F-35 obsolete. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, AI is a big deal in the defense space because it affects the kill chain. The kill chain is the ability to detect what an adversary threat, aircraft, missile, whatever it is, decide what to do, and then deliver the effect that you want. Detect, decide, deliver. AI is going to allow any military around the world to go through that kill chain more effectively and more quickly. And whoever does that more quickly is going to win that engagement. That's going to affect the battle and maybe even the war. And our adversaries in China, they don't have any sort of moral issues here about taking human beings out of the loop. And so that's a real challenge for us. So AI is central to American national security, both from an economic standpoint and a military standpoint. And we're in a race with China. We need to win that race, but there's also some other considerations about the role of human beings being in or on or off that loop.
All right, that's Bradley Bowman. He is a senior director at the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. They're at fdd.org. Thanks so much, Bradley, for joining us today.
Thank you.